In the dead of night, under a merciless moon, a banished Luna collapses in the shadows, her body weak from exile, her arms wrapped around the tiny life she swore to protect forever. 5 years ago, the Alpha King she loved more than her own soul stood before the entire pack and declared her worthless. Barren, he called her. Leave these lands and never return. They thought she would fade into nothing. But the child she carries in her arms is the heir they have hunted for in vain. The bloodline they desperately need. Now he's coming for her. And when the king who cast her out discovers the truth, nothing will ever be the same. What happens when fate forces the broken bond to awaken again? Chapter 1. Rain hammered the sacred clearing like the moon goddess herself was weeping. Cold water sluiced down Elara's face, soaking her ceremonial white gown until it clung transparently to her skin, heavy and accusing. She stood barefoot in the churned mud before the ancient stone altar, its runes dark and lifeless tonight, no silver glow, no blessing. Only judgment. For 3 years she had been Luna of the Shadowfang pack. Devoted. Unquestioning. She had loved Alpha King Thorn Blackwood with every beat of her heart, every breath in her lungs. The mating bond had sealed them under a crimson moon, fierce, golden, eternal. She still felt it now, thrumming between them like a second heartbeat, cedar smoke and iron will from him, wild jasmine and steel resolve from her. It had always felt unbreakable. Until tonight. The pack encircled her in a suffocating ring, 200 wolves in human skin, eyes gleaming amber in the torchlight. Their scents assaulted her, pine-sharp disappointment, sour impatience, the acrid bite of barely concealed triumph from those who had long whispered she was unfit. Barren. The word had started as rumor, grown into accusation, and now stood as verdict. Elara kept her spine straight. She was still their Luna. Still his mate. High Elder Mara stepped forward, silver braid dripping, voice cutting through the storm like a blade. The revealing is complete. The moon goddess has spoken. Luna Elara carries no heir. After 3 cycles of failure, the line remains empty. Murmurs rose, relief from some, scorn from others. Elara's gaze snapped to Thorn. He stood apart on the raised platform, black cloak sodden, broad shoulders rigid. Rain traced rivulets down his chiseled face, darkening the storm-grey eyes she once lost herself in. Through the bond she felt his storm, guilt like lead, fear of a crumbling legacy, resolve forged in elder council chambers. They had cornered him for months, the pack weakens without an heir. Rivals scent blood. Duty demands sacrifice. She reached for him mentally, a desperate thread. We are enough. We can wait. The goddess will bless us when it's time. His eyes met hers. For one fractured second, pain flickered their roar, unguarded. Then it vanished behind the mask of a king. Thorn mounted the altar steps. Silence fell heavier than the rain. Elara Voss, he began, voice low and resonant, carrying to every drenched wolf. You came to us as a gift of fate. You stood as Luna with courage and grace. You loved this pack. You loved me. Past tense. The word sliced deeper than any claw. But the moon goddess has withheld her greatest blessing. No heir has taken root. The Shadowfang line falters, and our enemies grow bold. He paused, jaw working. I can no longer place my heart above my people's survival. Elara's breath caught. The bond quivered, taut and trembling. I, Alpha King Thorn Blackwood, reject you, Elara Voss, as my fated mate and Luna. I sever the sacred bond granted by the moon goddess. You are stripped of your title and place among us. The words landed like a death blow. Agony erupted in her chest, white-hot, tearing, as if invisible claws ripped the golden thread from her soul. She heard it snap, a sickening crack that echoed inside her skull and made every wolf flinch. Elara staggered, hands flying to her sternum as though she could hold the pieces together. The world narrowed to blinding pain, the pack's sense turning venomous, contempt like smoke, satisfaction like rot, a few thin threads of pity that burned worst of all. Thorn's voice cracked, just once. By pack law and the will of the elders, you are banished. Leave Shadowfang territory before first light. Return, and you will be hunted as rogue. Banished. The word echoed hollow in the rain. Ilara lifted her head through blurring tears. Thorn stood like granite, fists clenched until knuckles whitened, staring at her as though memorizing the ruin he had wrought. In his eyes, buried deep, she glimpsed the ghost of the man who had once growled mine against her throat, who had promised forever under starlight. It vanished. She would not beg. Not before them. Not before him. Without a word, Ilara turned. Mud sucked greedily at her bare feet as she walked the gauntlet of silent wolves, wolves who had once lowered their eyes in respect, who now watched with lips curled or gazes averted. At the tree line she paused, just once. Over her shoulder, through sheets of rain, she saw Thorn alone on the platform, unmoving, watching her go. The bond was gone. Only cold emptiness remained. She stepped into the forest. Branches clawed her arms like accusations, rain dripped from leaves in icy mockery. Her hand drifted to her lower abdomen, flat, silent, unremarkable. She didn't know. Didn't yet feel the faint, secret pulse hidden beneath skin and sorrow, Thorn's child. Their heir. Conceived in one of those desperate, clinging nights before the elder's whispers became roars. Ilara walked deeper into the dark, heartbroken, cast out, alone. But something fierce kindled amid the wreckage, a quiet, burning promise. She would survive. She would endure. And when the time came, the Alpha King would learn exactly what he had thrown away. The storm swallowed her silhouette, carrying the future they never saw coming. Chapter 2. Dawn crept through the trees like a thief, grey and reluctant. Ilara had walked through the night, barefoot and shivering, until the forest swallowed the last echoes of rain and pack howls. Her white gown, once ceremonial silk, was now torn rags streaked with mud and blood from thorns. The cold seeped into her bones, but worse was the hollow where the bond used to live, a gaping silence that made every heartbeat feel borrowed. She collapsed against the base of an ancient oak, its roots curling like protective arms she no longer deserved. Her wolf stirred weakly inside her, mournful, disoriented, keening for a mate who had severed them both. Shifting would have been easier, fur against the chill, heightened senses to hunt. But the rejection had fractured something deeper. Her wolf felt distant, like a shadow retreating from light. She couldn't force the change. Not yet. Hunger gnawed, sharp and insistent. She hadn't eaten since the ritual feast the day before, bread, venison, wine shared with wolves who now spat her name. Her hand pressed to her stomach again, instinctive. Still flat. Still nothing. Or so she told herself. The forest was no friend to rogues. Shadowfang territory ended at the river she'd crossed at midnight, its icy current nearly sweeping her under. Beyond lay neutral lands, unclaimed wilderness where loners scratched out survival, where rival packs patrolled borders, where humans sometimes hunted with silver bullets. She was nothing now, no scent markers to shield her, no pack link to call for aid. Just a lone she-wolf with a broken bond and a death sentence if she lingered. By midday, exhaustion forced her to stop. She curled beneath a thicket of brambles, using fallen leaves for cover. Sleep came in fits, nightmares of Thorn's face, shuttered and cold, the pack's jeering scents, the snap of the bond like breaking bone. She woke to nausea rolling through her, violent and sudden. She retched into the dirt, nothing but bile and misery coming up. Stress, she thought. Grief. The bond break. But the nausea lingered, settling low in her belly like an unwelcome guest. She forced herself onward as the sun dipped. She needed water, food, shelter. A stream glinted ahead. She knelt, cupping frigid water to her cracked lips. Her reflection stared back, pale, hollow-eyed, hair matted with leaves. The proud Luna was gone. Only Ilara remained. That night, she found a shallow cave carved into a hillside, moss-soft floor and enough overhang to block wind. She huddled inside, knees to chest, trying to summon warmth from memory. Thorn's arms around her in winter dens. His low growl of mine against her neck. The way he'd trace her scars from old battles, promising protection. Tears came then, silent and scalding. She let them fall without shame. No one watched. No one cared. On the third day, the signs grew undeniable. She'd managed to catch a rabbit, slow, half-starved like her, using a makeshift snare from vines and patience. The raw meat tasted like ash, but she forced it down. Strength returned in trickles. Her wolf edged closer, not healed but watchful. Then came the scent. Faint at first, buried beneath mud and sorrow, something sweet, metallic, alive. A new heartbeat, tiny, rapid, impossibly strong, echoing inside her own chest. She froze mid-step, hand flying to her abdomen. No. It couldn't be. She closed her eyes, reached inward with the remnants of her lunar senses. There it was, a spark, warm and defiant, no bigger than a seed but pulsing with life. Thorn's child. Conceived before the elder's final push, before the ritual that declared her barren. Hidden. Miraculous. A sob tore from her throat, half grief, half fierce joy. The moon goddess hadn't abandoned her. She'd simply waited. But joy curdled fast. This child was heir to a throne that had cast them both out. If the pack learned, if Thorn learned, they might drag her back in chains, claim the pup as pack property, erase her entirely. Or worse, they might see the child as proof of her deception, a threat to whatever new Luna they installed. She couldn't go back. Not like this. Ilara stood straighter, wiping her face with a torn sleeve. The forest stretched endless before her, dangerous, unforgiving, but free. Rogues survived here. Some even thrived, banding into loose groups, carving new lives beyond alpha rule. She would too. For the child growing inside her, she would learn to hunt properly, to shift again despite the pain, to mask her scent and avoid patrols. She would grow strong. She would wait. One day, the truth would surface. Thorn would discover the heir he had banished before it drew breath. He would hunt her not out of love, perhaps, but duty, regret, desperation. And when he found her, Ilara bared her teeth in a smile that held no warmth. She would be ready. The forest whispered around her, indifferent and ancient. She stepped forward into the deepening shadows, one hand cradling the secret that would change everything. Exile had begun. But so had her rise. Chapter 3. Ilara limped through the twilight underbrush, one hand pressed to the deep bite on her shoulder, the other cradling her abdomen as if shielding a flame from wind. Blood trickled warm down her arm, mixing with dirt and berry stains, but she ignored the sting. The rogues had fled, cowards at heart, but their scents lingered like a warning. The neutrals were no sanctuary. They were a proving ground. Each step jarred the wound, but something else anchored her, that small, defiant pulse inside. Stronger now than it had been even hours ago, as though the fight had awakened it. The air was growing. Not just surviving, thriving. She could feel it in the way her wolf hovered closer, protective and alert, no longer retreating into shadows. The bond break had scarred them both, but this new life mended something deeper. She reached the boulder den as full dark settled, the stream's murmur a steady comfort. Dropping to her knees at the entrance, she crawled inside and collapsed onto the moss bedding. For a long moment she simply breathed, letting the cool earth leach heat from her fevered skin. First things first, wounds. Infection killed faster than claws in these lands. Ilara tore a strip from what remained of her gown, once white silk, now filthy rags, and soaked it in the stream. The cold water made her hiss as she cleaned the shoulder bite. Teeth had torn muscle, but not to bone. She'd heal. Her wolf nature would see to it, faster than any humans. She packed the gash with chewed yarrow leaves, bitter, numbing, then bound it tight with fresh vine. As she worked, the child stirred again. Not movement yet, no kicks, not for weeks, but a warm bloom of energy, like sunlight breaking through clouds. It pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, steady and sure. Ilara paused, hand splayed over her still flat belly. "You're fierce already," she whispered into the dimness. "Fighting before you even draw breath." Her wolf rumbled approval inside her mind, a low, contented sound she hadn't heard since before the rejection. The animal half of her had been grieving, distant. Now it circled protectively around the new life, as if claiming it as pack. Ours, it seemed to say. Safe. She leaned back against the boulder wall, exhaustion pulling at her edges. The den smelled of pine, damp stone, and her own blood, familiar now, almost comforting. No cedar smoke and alpha dominance here. No pack sense pressing in judgment. Just her. And the air. Sleep came in fragments, broken by flashes, the grey rogue's sneer, Thorn's shuttered eyes on the altar, the snap of the bond. But each time the nightmare rose, the child's pulse pushed back, small, insistent, a reminder that not everything had been taken. Dawn filtered grey through the entrance. Ilara woke hungry, the nausea from early days replaced by a sharper, demanding appetite. She slipped out, testing her shoulder. Stiff, painful, but usable. The wound already knit at the edges, pink and angry but closing. She hunted carefully, slow rabbit again, this time with less effort. Her wolf lent sharper senses, the twitch of ears in the brush, the faint rustle of fur. She pounced, teeth closing clean. Raw meat tore between her jaws, she ate half, saving the rest wrapped in leaves for later. Back at the den, she sat cross-legged in the weak sunlight and closed her eyes, reaching inward. The air's presence had grown clearer overnight, no longer just a spark, but a tiny, radiant core. She could almost sense its potential, strong, unyielding, threaded with alpha power that hummed like distant thunder. It would be a boy, she thought suddenly, the knowing settling in her bones like instinct. A son. With eyes like storm clouds and a growl that would one day command forests. But power like that drew eyes. Rogues. Packs. Thorn. The faint pull in her chest tugged again, westward, toward Shadowfang. Weaker than last night, but persistent, like a thread reweaving itself against all odds. She clenched her jaw and pushed it away. He doesn't get to feel us. Not anymore. She rose, stretching carefully. Survival demanded more than hiding. She needed better shelter, higher ground, perhaps a cave system. Stronger snares. Allies, maybe, among the less feral rogues. And she needed to train her wolf back to full strength, so when the heir arrived, she could protect him with fang and fury. Ilara gathered her few possessions, a sharpened bone knife, a pouch of dried berries, the blooded vine bandage. She stepped out into the morning, limping less now, head high. The forest stretched ahead, endless, dangerous, hers to conquer. Inside her, the hidden air grew, pulse by pulse, strength by strength. She placed a hand on her abdomen one last time, a silent vow. We rise together. And with that, she moved deeper into the wild, wounds healing, resolve hardening, the future taking root in exile's soil. The air grew. And so did the mother who would one day make kingdoms remember her name. Executed Code. Chapter 4. Ilara moved deeper into the wild, the morning sun filtering through leaves in thin golden spears. Her shoulder throbbed with each step, but the pain felt distant now, overshadowed by the steady rhythm inside her, the air's heartbeat, stronger hour by hour, like a drum calling her forward. She chose a narrow game trail winding uphill toward higher ridges, where caves riddled the rock face and escape routes multiplied. Better vantage. Better hiding. She had barely crested the first rise when the wind carried it, cedar smoke and iron, laced with pack loyalty. Shadowfang scouts. Not close, perhaps a league west, but unmistakable. Royal wolves, moving in formation, noses low. Her wolf snarled inside her mind. They hunt. Ilara dropped low, melting into ferns. The child's pulse quickened in response, as though sensing the threat. She pressed a palm to her belly. Quiet, little one. We stay hidden. She waited until the scent faded, then doubled back along a stream to mask her trail. Fear coiled tight, but so did resolve. She would not be dragged back in chains. Not now. Not ever. Far to the west, in the stone heart of Shadowfang Keep. Thorn stood motionless in the war room, arms crossed, staring at the map spread across the oak table. Border markers glowed red, rival incursions increasing. His beater, Gerrick, waited in silence. A knock shattered the quiet. An elder entered Old Mara, braid now fully silver, followed by a stranger, a gaunt rogue healer with matted hair and nervous eyes. The man stank of pine sap and fear. Speak, Thorn commanded, voice flat. The healer bowed low. I trade herbs in the neutrals, my king. 2 moons passed. I tended a she-wolf, silver-grey coat when shifted, violet eyes in human form. Banished, she said. She birthed a pup. A boy. Strong. Shifted at 3 weeks. Black fur. Grey eyes. He looked like you, sire. The very image. Silence thickened. Thorn's jaw clenched. Lies. The moon goddess declared her barren. The ritual proved it. The healer trembled. I swear by Luna's light. The pup growled with alpha command before he could walk. The mother called him Kaelin. The name struck like a blade. Thorn's hand slammed the table, cracking wood. Out. Mara lingered after the rogue fled. Whispers spread. Thorn. Rogues speak of a lost Luna raising an heir in exile. If true. It is not. But doubt cracked his certainty. That faint pull in his chest, the one he'd ignored for months, stirred again, warmer, insistent. That night, sleep refused him. In the dark of the royal den, the moon goddess came. Silver light flooded the chamber. A woman of starlight stood at the foot of his bed, ethereal, eyes like twin moons. She raised a hand, and the vision unfolded. Elara, alive, hair braided with vines, crouched in a forest den. Beside her slept a boy no more than a few moons old, yet already broad-shouldered, black hair tousled, features unmistakably Thorn's own. The child opened storm-grey eyes and looked straight through the vision, straight at him, and growled low, protective. Elara lifted her head, sensing the intrusion. Her violet gaze met Thorn's across the veil. No words, only accusation. Then pain. Then the vision shattered. Thorn woke gasping, sweat cold on his skin, hand pressed to the hollow where the bond once lived. It ached now, not severed, but frayed, reaching. Dawn found him in the council chamber. Elders waited, faces grim. The pack weakens without an heir, Mara said. We have chosen candidates. Strong bloodlines. Take a new Luna, Thorn. Secure the line. He stared at the fire. Guilt clawed his throat. Years of cold nights, failed matings, the memory of Elara's face when he rejected her. Duty demanded he move forward. Pride screamed he had been right. But the vision burned behind his eyes. Send scouts, he said at last, voice rough. To the neutral borders. Search for any sign of her. Discreetly. If the rumors hold truth. He didn't finish. The elders exchanged glances, then bowed and left to obey. Thorn remained alone, staring into flames. Regret tasted like ash. If she lived, if a child lived, he had banished his own blood. His heir. And if he found them, what then? Back in the ridges. Elara reached a shallow cave high above the valley as dusk bled purple across the sky. She dragged branches to conceal the entrance, then sank against the wall, breathing hard. The royal scent had circled closer during the day, 3 wolves now, methodical, searching. They hadn't found her trail yet, but they would. She couldn't stay. She placed both hands on her abdomen. The heir's heartbeat answered, faster, as though mirroring her fear. We move at first light, she whispered. Deeper. Farther. They won't take you. Exhaustion pulled her under, but sleep brought no peace. In her dreams, Thorn's grey eyes searched the dark, calling a name she refused to answer. Outside, the wind carried distant howls, scouts closing in. Whispers of the lost Luna had begun to echo. And the threads of fate pulled tighter, drawing hunter and hunted toward collision. Chapter 5. Elara slipped from the shallow cave at first light, the branches she dragged over the entrance left deliberately scattered to suggest abandonment. The royal scout's scent had thickened overnight, 3 wolves, now 4, circling the ridges like hounds on fresh blood. She could no longer wait for dawn to fully break. She moved fast and silent, Kaelin cradled against her chest in a sling of woven vines and hide. He was heavier than yesterday, stronger, his tiny fists clutching her braid as though sensing the urgency. Quiet now, my heart, she whispered, lips brushing his dark hair. We go deeper. Into the Forbidden Woods. The Forbidden Woods lay beyond the neutral ridge, a dense, mist-shrouded tangle claimed by no pack because ancient curses clung to the trees. Wolves spoke of shadows that moved on their own, of prey that vanished mid-hunt. Ilara had avoided it until now. Today it was their only shield. She descended the far slope, feet finding moss-silent paths, doubling back twice to confuse any trailing nose. Kaelin fussed softly, hungry. She paused only long enough to nurse him beneath a low-hanging cedar, her back against the trunk, ears straining for pursuit. His small mouth latched on, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to warmth and rhythm, his heartbeat syncing with hers, fierce and unafraid. Far behind, at the edge of the neutral border, Thorn rode at the head of 5 elite wolves, Gerrick at his right flank, for seasoned trackers fanned out in wolf form. He had not shifted yet, he needed the clarity of human thought to contain the storm inside him. The vision still burned, Ilara's accusing eyes, the boy's growl that echoed his own. Obsession had taken root. Duty be damned, he had to know. Flashback stole him mid-stride. 3 years earlier. A summer meadow under a fat moon. Ilara laughing as she chased him through tall grass, her silver-grey wolf form gleaming. He'd caught her, pinned her gently, nuzzled her throat. Mine, he'd growled, voice thick with want. She'd shifted beneath him, violet eyes sparkling. Always. They'd made love there in the open, grass cool against fevered skin, the bond singing between them like starlight made sound. The memory cut deeper than any claw. He'd thrown that away. For what? A barren line? Elders' whispers? Pride? He shook it off, jaw tight. Spread out, he ordered. Any sign, scent, track, broken branch, report immediately. They pushed into the neutrals. His wolf clawed beneath his skin, desperate to run, to find. The faint pull in his chest had sharpened to a needle, pointing northeast. Toward the forbidden woods. Deeper in the wild. Ilara reached the mist line by midday. Trees here grew twisted, bark black as charcoal, leaves dripping silver dew that never dried. The air tasted metallic. Kaelin sneezed, wrinkling his nose. Almost there, she murmured. She set him down in a small hollow ringed by ferns to rest his legs. He toddled forward, giggling, chasing a firefly that shouldn't have been flying in daylight. Ilara smiled despite the ache in her chest, then froze. A low growl rolled from the mist. One scout, black-furred, royal-marked, stepped from the trees, eyes locked on Kaelin. The boy startled. Fear spiked his scent. Instinct took over. Kaelin shifted. Bones cracked, fur sprouted midnight black, tiny paws hitting earth. A pup no bigger than a fox stood where her son had been, grey eyes wide, lips peeled in a miniature snarl that carried alpha command. The scout's ears flattened. Recognition flashed. He threw back his head and howled, long, triumphant, calling the pack. Ilara lunged, scooping Kaelin pup into her arms as she shifted mid-stride. Silver-grey wolf burst from her skin, pain forgotten. She bolted deeper into the mist, jaws clamped gently around Kaelin's scruff, his small body dangling safely. Behind her, howls answered 4, then 5. The hunt was on. She ran. Trees blurred. Mist thickened. Branches whipped her flanks, drawing blood. Kaelin whimpered, paws paddling air. She pushed harder, lungs burning, weaving through root tangles and over fallen giants. The forbidden woods helped, scents twisted, trails vanished, but royal wolves were relentless. A grey wolf burst from the left. She veered right, claws raking bark for purchase. Another flanked Gerrick, she recognized his scarred shoulder. She snapped at his muzzle, drawing blood, then dove under a low arch of vines. They were closing. She burst into a clearing ringed by ancient standing stones, moss-covered and humming with old power. No way out but through. She set Kaelin down behind a stone, shifted human, naked and bleeding, placing herself between him and the emerging wolves. 5 shadows solidified. Thorn stepped forward last. He froze. His gaze dropped to the black-furred pup peeking from behind the stone, storm-grey eyes staring back at him, fearless, furious, his. The world narrowed to that single point. Recognition hit like lightning. The boy was his. Thorn's knees buckled half a step. Breath left him in a ragged sound. The bond pull roared to life, not frayed, but blazing, connecting him to the child, to Elara, searing through years of denial. Elara stood tall despite the wounds, violet eyes blazing, shielding her son with her body. "You," she said, voice low and lethal, "have no right to be here." Thorn could not speak. He could only stare at the son he had never known existed and at the woman he had banished, who had grown into something unbreakable. The hunt had ended. But the reckoning had only begun. Chapter 6. The standing stones loomed like silent judges under the rising moon. Silver light bathed the clearing, turning blood on Elara's skin to molten mercury. She stood naked, unbowed, violet eyes locked on Thorn as though she could burn him to ash with a glance. Behind her, Kaelin, still in pup form, pressed against her calf, tiny growl vibrating through her leg. The other wolves held position at the tree line, frozen by their king's sudden stillness. Thorn took one halting step forward. His voice cracked on the first word. "Elara." "Don't," she snarled. "You don't get to say my name like it still belongs to you." He stopped. Hands open at his sides, weaponless, vulnerable. The elite wolves shifted uneasily, but none moved. Gerrick's gaze flicked between them, uncertain. Thorn's eyes never left the boy. Kaelin's grey stare mirrored his own, unflinching, curious now instead of afraid. The alpha's chest rose and fell in shallow bursts. "His, mine." Elara laughed, a raw, broken sound. "Yours. You banished us before he drew breath. You called me barren in front of the entire pack. You let them watch while you tore our bond apart like it was nothing. I thought," his voice fractured. "The ritual. The elders. No child came. I believed the goddess had spoken." She did. Elara's words cut like winter wind. She waited. She delayed the pregnancy until after you proved your doubt. Until after you chose duty over love. This child, she laid a trembling hand on Kaelin's dark head, is her punishment. And her gift. To me. Not to you. Thorn staggered as though struck. The faint bond pull that had haunted him for years roared awake, golden threads flickering back to life in his chest, fragile but real. He dropped to one knee, heedless of the mud, the stones, the watching pack. "I was wrong," he rasped. "Every day since that night. I've carried the weight of it. The failed matings. The empty throne. The whispers of a curse. I thought I was saving the pack. I was destroying it. Destroying us." Elara's fists clenched. Tears, hot, furious, spilled down her cheeks. "You didn't just destroy us. You humiliated me. You made me rogue. I nearly died giving birth alone in a storm cave. I taught him to shift while hiding from hunters. I kept him alive while you sat on your throne pretending the bond was gone." "It never was," Thorn whispered. "Not fully. I felt you. Every full moon. Every time you were in danger. I told myself it was guilt. But it was you. Always you." Kaelin whined softly. His small body shimmered, pup fur receding, bones lengthening, and in moments a dark-haired boy stood barefoot in the moonlight, clutching Elara's leg. He looked up at Thorn with wide, storm-grey eyes. The clearing went deathly still. Kaelin tilted his head, studying the man who knelt before them. Then, in a voice small but clear, he said, "Father." The word landed like a thunderclap. Thorn's breath hitched. Tears, ones he hadn't shed in years, glistened on his lashes. He reached out slowly, palm up, trembling. "Yes," he managed. I'm your father." Kaelin glanced at Elara, seeking permission. She gave the barest nod, throat too tight for words. The boy stepped forward. Small hand met large. Thorn closed his fingers gently around Kaelin's, as though afraid the child would vanish. A sob tore from the alpha's throat, quiet, broken. He pulled Kaelin into his arms, burying his face in dark hair that smelled of forest and wild jasmine and home. Elara watched, chest heaving. Rage still burned, but beneath it something softer cracked open, grief, longing, the ghost of love she had tried to bury. Thorn lifted his gaze to her over Kaelin's head. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said hoarsely. "I know that. But I will spend every breath earning the right to know him. To know you again. If you'll let me." Elara's voice shook. I don't know if I can ever trust you not to break us again. I swear on the moon goddess, on this boy, on whatever is left of our bond, I will never choose anything over you two again. Moonlight poured over them, bathing the three in silver. The partial bond flared brighter, warmth spreading from Thorn's chest to hers, tentative threads reweaving. Not whole. Not yet. But alive. Kaelin wriggled free and reached for Ilara's hand, linking the three of them. Mama. Is he staying? Ilara looked down at her son, then at the man who had once been her everything. Tears slipped free. I don't know, she whispered. But tonight we talk. Thorn bowed his head in gratitude, still on his knees. The wolves at the tree line lowered their heads in silent respect. In the moonlit clearing, truth finally broke free. And the shattered bond began, slowly, painfully, to mend. Chapter 7. Moonlight pooled in the clearing like spilled silver. Ilara stood rooted, Kaelin's small hand still clasped in hers, the three of them linked in a fragile triangle. Thorn remained on his knees before them, Alpha King of Shadowfang reduced to supplication, his storm-grey eyes glistening, never leaving her face. Ilara, he said again, softer this time, voice raw. Come home. Both of you. The pack needs its heir. I need my family. I was blind. Cruel. Let me make it right. She laughed once, sharp and brittle. Home. The place where you humiliated me. Where elders sneered and wolves turned their backs while you snapped our bond like dry wood. Trust doesn't mend overnight, Thorn. You don't get to beg and be forgiven because the moon goddess showed you a vision. His shoulders sagged, but he didn't rise. I know. I don't expect forgiveness tonight. I only ask for a chance to earn it. Day by day. Breath by breath. Let me protect what I should have protected from the beginning. Kaelin tugged Ilara's hand, looking up with wide, curious eyes. Mama, what's home? Is it big? Does it have other pups to play with? The innocent question pierced her. She crouched to his level, brushing dark hair from his forehead. Home is complicated, little one. It's where people are supposed to keep you safe. But sometimes they don't. Thorn's voice cracked. I failed you both. But I swear on my life I will guard you with everything I am. No more elders dictating. No more doubt. Just us. Kaelin studied his father, then glanced at the silent wolves at the tree line. They're scared of you, he said matter-of-factly to Thorn. But you're scared too. I can smell it. A choked sound escaped Thorn, half laugh, half sob. You're right, son. I'm terrified. Terrified I've lost you forever. Ilara's throat tightened. She looked at her boy, fearless, intuitive, already reading sense and emotions like a born alpha, and felt the last wall crack. Stand up, she said quietly to Thorn. He rose slowly, towering yet careful, as though afraid any sudden movement would shatter the moment. Ilara released Kaelin's hand. Show him, she told the boy. Show him what you can do. Kaelin beamed. Without hesitation he shifted, smooth, effortless, black pup fur rippling into place. He threw back his head and let out a howl, high, clear, carrying surprising power for his age. The sound rolled through the clearing, vibrating the standing stones. Power hummed in the air, alpha command woven into innocence. The scouts at the edge dropped to their bellies, heads lowered in instinctive submission. Even Gerrick's hackles smoothed. They had witnessed it. The heir's strength, undeniable, legitimate. Thorn's eyes widened in awe. He shifted to massive black wolf, larger than memory, then lifted his muzzle and joined the howl. Deep, resonant, protective. Ilara felt it in her bones, the old pack call, but changed. Layered now with father and son. She couldn't resist. Her silver-grey wolf emerged, smaller but fierce. She stepped between them and added her voice, clear, haunting, the Luna's harmony that had once steadied the entire pack. For the first time in 5 years, 3 howls braided together under the moon. The bond threads flared brighter, warm gold pulsing between them. When they shifted back, Kaelin ran to Thorn, arms outstretched. The king caught him, lifting him high before settling him against his chest. Ilara watched Thorn bury his face in their son's hair, whispering apologies too soft for her to hear. Thorn looked at her over Kaelin's head. "Let me mark you again," he murmured. "Not as claim. As promise." She hesitated. He set Kaelin down gently. The boy scampered to sniff a mossy stone, giving them space. Thorn closed the distance, slow, reverent. His hand rose to cup her cheek. She didn't flinch. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "I'm sorry," he breathed. "For every second of pain. For every night you were alone." He leaned in, nose tracing the curve of her neck where his old mark had faded to silver scar. His scent, cedar smoke, iron, home, flooded her senses. He pressed lips to the scar, soft, lingering. Then teeth grazed, gentle, asking. Ilara shivered. The bond surged, threads knitting tighter. She tilted her head, granting permission. He bit down carefully, remarking, not dominating. Warmth bloomed, possessive yet tender. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him. She let herself lean in, just for a moment, breathing him in. When he pulled back, his eyes shone. "My Luna," he said, loud enough for the scouts to hear. "My true mate. Returned by the goddess's will." He turned to the wolves. "Witness this. Ilara Voss is reinstated as Luna of Shadowfang. The heir stands before you. Any who question it answer to me." The scouts bowed lower, murmurs of or rippling through them. Ilara met Thorn's gaze. "This doesn't erase the past." "I know." His hand found hers, fingers threading tight. "But it's a beginning." Kaelin ran back, grabbing both their hands. "Are we going home now?" Ilara looked at her son, then at the man who had broken and was trying, painfully, to rebuild. She squeezed Thorn's hand once. "Yes," she said softly. "We're going home." The moon watched as the small family turned toward Shadowfang lands, flanked by humbled scouts. The king walked beside his Luna, shoulder brushing hers, every possessive glance and gentle touch a vow renewed. The bond hummed between them, scarred, but growing stronger. The king had claimed his family again. And this time, he would never let go. Episode 8. The Shadowfang border stones glowed faintly under dawn's first blush as the small procession crossed the line. Ilara walked beside Thorn, Kaelin perched on his father's shoulders, tiny hands tangled in the king's dark hair. The scouts fanned out ahead, silent and reverent, their earlier aggression replaced by awed deference. No one spoke of chains or capture now. Only homecoming. The pack sensed them long before they reached the central clearing. Howls rose, curious, then startled, then joyous as the scent of their lost Luna and an unknown alpha pup swept through the dens. Wolves poured from tunnels and longhouses, freezing mid-step when they saw her. Ilara, silver-grey hair braided with forest vines, violet eyes steady, scars from 5 years of exile etched like silver threads on her skin. Beside her walked Thorn, carrying their son like a crown. Gasps rippled. Some dropped to their knees. Others stared, mouths open. The elders emerged last, old Mara at the fore, braid trembling. Thorn stopped at the heart of the clearing, beneath the great moonstone altar where he had once rejected her. He lifted Kaelin down gently, then took Ilara's hand, raising their joined fingers high. "Shadowfang," he called, voice carrying to every ear. "Behold your true Luna, returned by the moon goddess's will. And behold your heir, Kaelin Blackwood, son of Thorn and Ilara, alpha blood proven." Kaelin, sensing the moment, shifted without prompting, black pup fur gleaming, grey eyes bright. He threw back his head and howled, small but commanding, the sound rolling through the pack like thunder. Every wolf present felt it, alpha power, pure and undeniable. Submission rippled outward, even the strongest beaters lowered their gazes. Mara stepped forward, face ashen. We were wrong. The goddess has judged us." Thorn's voice hardened. "Those who doubted, who pressed for my rejection, who turned from their Luna, step forward." 3 elders shuffled out, heads bowed. Thorn regarded them coldly. "You will serve the borders for 1 full cycle, no rank, no voice in council. Prove your loyalty through sweat and silence. Fail, and you leave these lands forever." They bowed deeper, accepting without protest. Ilara stepped onto the altar platform alone. The pack watched in hushed awe as she placed both hands on the moonstone. It flared silver, brighter than it had in years, acknowledging her. She spoke quietly, but every wolf heard. I return not for revenge, but for my son. For our future. I am Luna again. Not by your grace, but by hers. She nodded skyward. Harm my child, question my place, and you answer to me. A low, approving rumble rose from the pack. Respect, not fear. That evening, in the royal den rebuilt, warmed by fresh furs and firelight, Thorn knelt to help Kaelin into a tiny tunic. The boy giggled as his father fumbled the ties. You're terrible at this, Kaelin teased. Thorn chuckled, the sound rusty but genuine. I have 5 years to catch up, little wolf. Ilara watched from the doorway, arms crossed, a small smile tugging her lips. Thorn glanced up, eyes softening. He rose, crossed to her in 3 strides, and pulled her gently against him. His nose traced her neck, inhaling deeply, relearning her scent, cedar smoke mingling with wild jasmine. I missed this, he murmured against her skin. Missed you. She let him hold her, tension easing inch by inch. His hands slid to her waist, possessive yet careful. When she tilted her head, he kissed the fresh mark he'd given her, slow, reverent. Heat kindled low in her belly, old passion stirring beneath new scars. Thorn, she breathed, half warning, half invitation. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Whenever you're ready. No rush. I wait as long as you need. Kaelin tugged Thorn's pant leg. Papa, story? Thorn scooped him up, settling on the wide bed with Ilara beside them. He told tales of ancient alphas and moonlit hunts, voice low and steady. Kaelin fell asleep between them, small chest rising and falling. In the quiet, Thorn's hand found Ilara's over their son's head. Fingers laced. The bond hummed, stronger now, threads fully rewoven. More children, he asked softly, thumb stroking her knuckles. Siblings for him? Ilara's breath caught. She looked at Kaelin, then at Thorn, really looked and felt the last shard of ice melt. Maybe, she whispered. When the time is right. Before dawn broke, a scout's urgent howl pierced the night. Rival wolves testing the southern border, emboldened by years of perceived weakness. Thorn rose instantly, but Ilara was already on her feet, shifting mid-stride. Silver-grey wolf beside massive black. Together they led the defense, Thorn's roar commanding, Ilara's strikes precise and lethal. The intruders fled before sunrise, tails tucked. Back in the den, blooded but victorious, Thorn pulled her close again, this time in front of the pack who had gathered. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, open claim, open devotion. They see now, he said against her mouth. You are my Luna. My queen. My everything. Ilara rested her forehead against his. And you are finally ours. The throne room doors stood open. Light poured in. The king had returned his family. And the pack had its future, stronger, whole, unbreakable. Chapter 9. The royal den glowed with firelight and the soft silver spill of the rising full moon through the open balcony. Kaelin slept soundly in the adjoining pup chamber, guarded by 2 trusted beaters who had volunteered without being asked. The pack outside hummed with quiet celebration, howls of welcome still echoing faintly from the borders, but inside, silence wrapped Ilara and Thorn like a cocoon. They sat on thick furs before the hearth, knees almost touching. Thorn's hand rested palm up between them, an offering, not a demand. Ilara studied the lines etched into his palm, scars from battles she had once fought beside him. I dreamed of this, Thorn said quietly. Every night after you left. You walking back through the gates. But in the dreams, you always turned away at the last step. Ilara's gaze lifted. I almost did tonight. When we crossed the border stones, part of me wanted to run again. Take Kaelin and disappear deeper than any scout could follow. He swallowed. Why didn't you? Because he looked at you and said Papa. Her voice cracked on the word. And because I still feel you. Even after everything. The bond never died for me either. It just went quiet. Hid. Like I did. Thorn's fingers curled slightly, aching to close the distance. I was terrified of failing the pack. Of being the king who ended the Blackwood line. The elders fed that fear until it was louder than love. I chose wrong. I chose everything over you. Ilara reached out at last, placing her hand in his. Skin met skin, warm, trembling. I spent 5 years believing you hated me. That the rejection meant I was worthless. Barren. Unwanted. I carried our son alone, birthed him in a cave during a storm, and every cry he made reminded me what you threw away. Tears tracked down Thorn's face, silent, unashamed. I hate myself for it. More than any enemy ever could. She leaned forward, forehead resting against his. Then stop hating. Start healing. We both carry scars. Let them mean something. The moon reached its zenith. Silver light flooded the chamber, bathing them in cool fire. Thorn rose first, drawing Ilara up with him. He led her to the wide balcony overlooking the sacred clearing below. The pack had gathered in a loose circle around the moonstone altar, silent witnesses, heads bowed in respect. No elders presided tonight. This was private. Sacred. Between mates. Thorn shifted first, massive black wolf, fur gleaming like obsidian under moonlight. Ilara followed, silver-grey, lean and fierce, violet eyes glowing. They circled each other slowly, noses brushing flanks, inhaling deeply. Scents mingled, cedar smoke and wild jasmine, iron and earth, forgiveness and longing. Thorn nuzzled the fresh mark on her neck, then stepped back, lowering his head in submission. An alpha king bowing to his Luna. The pack below rumbled approval, low, reverent. Ilara stepped forward, pressing her muzzle to his throat in acceptance. Then she shifted human again, naked, unashamed, and Thorn followed, rising tall before her. He took her hands. By the moon goddess, I claim you again, not as possession, but as partner. My strength is yours. My heart is yours. My life is yours. Ilara's voice was steady. And I accept you not as king, but as mate. My pain is shared. My love is shared. My future is shared. They kissed, slow at first, tasting salt and memory. Then deeper, hungrier. Heat surged between them, old passion reigniting like dry tinder under lightning. Thorn lifted her effortlessly, carrying her back inside to the wide bed strewn with white petals the pack had left in quiet offering. Their bodies met, skin to skin, scar to scar. Hands mapped forgotten paths. Whispers turned to gasps. The bond roared awake fully, golden threads blazing bright, weaving through every nerve, every heartbeat. Sensory overload, his cedar scent flooding her lungs, her jasmine taste on his tongue, the electric hum where flesh joined flesh. When release came, it shattered them both, howls tearing from their throats, echoing across the valley. The pack answered in a unified chorus, voices rising to the moon in celebration. Below, the moonstone flared blinding silver, sealing the restoration. They collapsed together, tangled and trembling. Thorn pressed his forehead to hers, breathing ragged. It's whole, he whispered. The bond, it's whole again. Ilara traced the line of his jaw. Stronger than before. Because we chose it this time. In the pup chamber, Kalen stirred, shifting in his sleep to black-furred pup form. A soft, contented growl rumbled from his small chest, he felt it too. The future alpha thrived, safe, loved, rooted. Outside, the pack dispersed slowly, murmurs of renewed hope spreading. Borders secure, hunts plentiful, the curse lifted. Prosperity whispered on the wind, crops would flourish, pups would come strong, rivals would hesitate. Thorn pulled Ilara closer, hand splaying over her abdomen. More, he murmured against her hair. When you're ready. She smiled into the dark. When we're ready. Moonlight faded to pre-dawn grey. The broken bond was healed, not erased, but transformed. Scars remained, but they shone now like silver threads in moonlight. The king and his Luna slept entwined. And Shadowfang began to heal with them. Chapter 10. 7 years had passed since the full moon that healed the broken bond. Shadowfang lands flourished. The borders stood unbreached, hunts ran rich, and the nursery dens rang with the laughter of a new generation of pups. The curse the elders once feared had never been real, only the consequence of a king's doubt and a Luna's exile. Now, prosperity bloomed where doubt once withered. In the royal training yard, morning sun slanted across packed earth. Kaelin, 12 now, tall for his age, black hair falling into storm-grey eyes, circled his father with the grace of a born warrior. He shifted mid-stride, midnight black wolf lunging with controlled power. Thorn met him as wolf, massive and steady, letting the boy land a solid shoulder check before rolling them both in a playful tumble. Too eager, Thorn rumbled as they shifted back, both breathing hard and grinning. Power without patience is just noise. Kaelin wiped sweat from his brow. Then teach me patience, father. Thorn clapped a hand on his son's shoulder. Every day, little wolf. Every day. From the shaded colonnade, Ilara watched, one hand resting on the gentle swell of her abdomen. The second child, a girl, the midwives whispered, kicked strongly, as though already eager to join the world. Proof, undeniable, that the moon goddess had lifted any shadow of barrenness the moment trust returned. Ilara smiled softly, feeling the familiar warmth of the fully restored bond pulse between her and Thorn, steady, deep, unbreakable. Thorn caught her gaze across the yard. His eyes softened, the same way they had every morning since her return. He murmured something to Kaelin, who nodded and jogged off toward the archery range with his friends. Then Thorn crossed to her in long strides, dropping to one knee so they were eye level. "How's our little fighter today?" he asked, placing both hands reverently over the curve of her belly. "Restless," Ilara replied, covering his hands with hers. "She's going to keep us on our toes." "Good." Thorn leaned in, pressing a slow kiss to her lips, possessive yet tender, the way he always kissed her now, as though every touch was an apology and a promise renewed. "She'll have her mother's fire and her brother's strength. And my patience, if we're lucky." Ilara laughed quietly. "She'll need all three." He rose, drawing her against his side, arm wrapped protectively around her waist. Together they walked the winding path to the palace balcony that overlooked the valley. Kaelin joined them moments later, still flushed from training, hair tousled. The three of them, soon to be four, stood at the stone railing as dusk crept in. Below, the pack moved through evening routines, mothers calling pups home, warriors sharpening blades by firelight, elders telling stories under the first stars. Howls rose sporadically, content, unified. The moon climbed, full and bright, bathing everything in silver. Kaelin leaned against the railing. "Do you think she'll shift early like I did?" Ilara ruffled his hair. "If she's anything like you, yes. And she'll have the best teachers." Thorn pulled them both closer, Ilara tucked under one arm, Kaelin against his side. His voice dropped, meant only for them. "I almost lost this. All of it. Every day I thank the goddess I didn't." Ilara turned her face up to his. "We all chose differently that night. And we chose right this time." He kissed her forehead, then Kaelin's. The bond thrummed between the three of them, golden, warm, alive with the promise of more. Below, a pup's first uncertain howl joined the chorus. The pack answered, strong, welcoming. What was once shattered is now forged stronger. A family stood on the balcony, watching the moon rise over lands that would one day belong to their children. Hope stretched before them, endless as the night sky. The end. If you loved this tale of redemption and fated love, subscribe for more werewolf romance, rejected mate comebacks, and second chance HEAs. And tell me in the comments, what trope should I tackle next?